Hey guys, this is Evan for Grips.com, and today I'm going to be bringing you a live session of me playing No Limit Hold'em at TowerGaming.com. For this video, I'm just going to be playing 4 tables, 2 for no limit, and I'm just going to discuss hands as they come up, any interesting spots, any difficult spots. I'm just going to discuss, and hopefully we can get some good learning out of this. So here with pocket aces, I think the move's pretty obvious. Re-raise. Definitely wouldn't be a good spot to slow play aces. Not only would I be going to the flop 3 ways, I would be closing the action, guaranteed to see that flop. So here on the King 7 King board, I'm going to fire out a bet, and I think that this player can call me with pocket 9s through queens, as well as hands that have a king in them. Now, if I bet the turn again, I think my opponent will fold all those hands that don't contain a king. So for that reason, I'm going to check and maybe try to get a bit more value on the river. So what I am doing right now is turning my hand into a bluff catcher and trying to induce value from hands that he might turn into bluffs. He's betting 121. I think I'm going to call and make a decision on the river. I know that king queen suited is a possibility, but I think he's more likely to have called my re-raise with a pocket pair, given that he's a rather tight player. On the river club, I'm looking at a somewhat tough decision. But I will check and evaluate. Given that I have 2 aces in my hand, it really decreases the likelihood that this opponent has ace-king. And I don't think he's calling a re-raise with king-jack suited or anything like that, so unless he has king-queen, he probably doesn't have a king in his hand. So I'm hoping he has pocket 7s. Well, I'm going to be ambitious and hope he's bluffing. And look at that, I look like a genius. Now, if I had gone ahead and bet the turn, he almost definitely would have folded his pocket 9s, and I wouldn't have extracted any extra value from that hand. So I did what I felt was the best way to maximize value from my 2 aces. And it's very important that you think on the fly and adjust on the fly so that you can get the most out of every hand, because no hand is the same, and there's always 3 options. Obviously fold, call, raise, but most people like to stick with what they know and go with the simple option, the routine option. And generally that option is not going to be bad. It's just not necessarily going to be the best and most profitable option. So it's, you got to factor in the information and be willing to switch up your game plan. Like, at first my plan was to just probably bet all 3 streets after the flop with the aces, if the flop came good. But once I got that kind of dicey flop, I had to change my game plan. The queen jack, I didn't just go bet because the king wasn't the best turn for me. It could make him 2-pair with a queen king, and he could also have picked up some hands that have equity. He could have turned straight, one of the straight draws got there, and even the hands that I'm still beating, like a king 10 or an ace queen, would have difficulty. The ace queen would have difficulty calling the turn possibly, and the king 10 still has a very good amount of equity in the pot, so a good chance of beating me by the river. So for that reason, I just decided I would check back and bet the river so that he can call me with more hands. Here with the Queen Jack, I'm just going to call. I flop top pair, but given that it was a multi-way pot, and I didn't want to get raised off my hand, I checked back for pot control to keep the size of the pot small. When you don't have a hand that you feel is worth going for 2 or 3 streets of betting, it's good to exercise pot control, and you keep the size of the pot small. But when you are pot controlling, you can't just fold to a bet. So I pot control, I made sure that the pot won't get too large and too out of control. And then I make a bet on the river when I'm fairly confident that I have the best hand. I believe that if this player had a better hand than a pair of queens with a jack kicker, he would have bet the river himself. And so, for that reason, I thought it was good to go for a bet. When you are playing a lot of hands and trying to maximize your earn at the table, it's very important that you go for every value bet that you can whenever the opportunity presents itself to make a value bet. So a spot where you believe you have the best hand and your opponent can call with a worse hand, you have to take those spots, because that is where you make your money in this game, is by making good bets. Now, just because you have the best hand doesn't mean you need to bet on the end. You should only bet if you think it's very likely your opponent can call you with the worst hand. Anyway, here we have King 9 suited, which against a button raise generally isn't a bad hand, but this player is very tight. He's only playing 12% of hands, or raising 12% of hands and playing 18% of hands. So against a tight player like this, a very tight player, my general strategy is to try to not give them very much action. Given that they're playing very tight, they're going to have very good hands when they enter the pot. So I just let them take the blind and don't reward them for playing tight. If, however, the player was very loose and he would be raising with maybe any king or a lot of suited connectors that have a 9 in them, which I obviously dominate, then I would definitely at least call and see a flop. Another problem about that hand, though, is that I don't have position, and by calling I don't have the lead in the hand, so aggression, and my hand is okay. But I only have one element of the triple threat, and I like to try to focus on playing spots where I have at least 2 elements of the triple threat, and usually 3. So for that reason, I elected to fold. Here is a spot where a lot of people make an error, and that is playing the hand in the first place. Ace-Jack is a good hand. Definitely, you got 2 face cards, big ace, good kicker. But when you're playing against a player who is raised under the gun, and once again, a tight player, they probably aren't going to have hands that are worse than Ace-Jack. If they have an ace, it's probably Ace-King or Ace-Queen. And most of these guys aren't raising hands like Jack-10 suited, Jack-Queen suited, Jack-King suited, and definitely not the offsuit hands from those positions. Okay, this guy plays pretty loose, so I'm gonna make a re-raise here. I'm gonna do a pre-flop semi-bluff with the 40% of a straight flush draw. And with Ace-Queen, I'm gonna fire a continuation bet, so that if the guy doesn't have a king in his hand, he'll probably fold and let me take the pot. Here, I'm going to try a continuation bet as well. The first one didn't work, but that doesn't mean it's not a good move. The It's very important to be continuation betting at a very high frequency, because more often than not, your opponent doesn't hit the flop and they will fold and let you take what's in the middle. And you guys should know that when we're betting like between 2/3 and 3/4 of the pot, our bet doesn't have to be successful that often to show a profit. So when I've got possession and aggression going for me, I'm going to be firing that continuation bet 60–70% of the time. It just can't be bad. And these 2 times it didn't work out, but my investment and my risk was very small on those hands. So, you know, I'm really not sweating it. Here with 8-7 suited, I may not have position and I may not be guaranteed to close the action, but there's a very good chance that this hand is going to go 5 ways to the flop or 4 ways to the flop. And when you have that many players in a hand, the values of suited connectors goes way up. Same with pocket pairs. So if no one had called Tommy Guns raise, I would have definitely folded the 8-7 suited. If one person had called Tommy's raise, I would probably have only called with the 8-7 suited if I had position. But once 2 people have called Tommy's raise, and there's the possibility of a 5th person coming in behind, I've just got to see this flop. And yeah, I flopped a pair, but nothing else really going for me. No straight draws, no flush draws. So I'm out. I took my good odds pre-flop. I'm not looking at a good situation on the flop, so I just get out, keep my losses, well, not my losses, my investment to a minimum. And that's what you want to be doing in this game, is keeping your speculative investments real cheap and then not throwing good money after bad situations. Queen Jack, it's a good hand. From under the gun, not so much though. On the button, definitely gonna raise it because I'm guaranteed to have position and I got decent selection. But raising up front, not guaranteed to have position at all. Not guaranteed to have the best hand either. So it's just not a situation that I feel I need to get involved in. And these small little details, like a pre-flop fold or a pre-flop raise, make all the difference in the long run, because if I shouldn't be playing this hand pre-flop and that's a mistake, then I'm going to compound my error after the flop and lose more money on the hand. What starts as just a little 3 big blind speculative play can end up costing me my whole stack. And that's why I advocate playing a very cautious game and smart game before the flop, so that you will find yourself in more profitable positions post-flop, after the flop, where you have a better likelihood of having the best hand, better likelihood of being able to extract value, of getting paid, all that good stuff. Suited connectors, love the suited connectors, but when I'm not going to have position, I'm not going to have aggression, and I'm dealing with a re-raised pot, I'm just putting myself in a really, really tough spot. And it's the fact that I am calling a re-raise with 10 high against a guy who probably has ace king or a pocket pair means I have a lot of ground to make up. Even if I make a pair, top pair, I still might have more ground to make up if he has an overpair. If I flop a flush draw, well, that'd be awesome. First problem is it's not happening all that often. I think I'm about 8-1 to see a flush draw. But then to realize my flush draw is going to be real tough, because he's probably got a good hand, and whether he does or not, he's going to be putting a lot of money in that pot. And the biggest problem is I'm out of position. It is way harder to realize your equity, meaning to see your hand through to the end and see if you can make your draw, when you are out of position than it is to try to realize your equity when you are in position. And that's a very important concept to understand. So if I had that suited connector in position, I may have been inclined to play it. But given that I was out of position and it was going to be much more difficult to realize my equity in the hand, I think that the smart and prudent thing to do is fold and move on to the next hand. And there's no shame in folding. A lot of people think that it's uncool to fold, it's lame to fold, it's weak to fold, and that's just not true. I will acknowledge that it's not exciting to fold because you don't get to see how the rest of the hand develops and whether you would have got lucky or not. But that's what separates the professionals and the poker players from the gamblers. As a poker player, your job is to try to make the best decision that you can given the information presented to you. And that's it. Your job is to make the best decision you can given the information you have. And that's it. In poker, as in life, it's important to focus on the things that you can control and to not worry about the things that you can't control. Luck is something that you cannot control. So trying to get lucky when the odds are not in your favor, it's just not good poker. It's just not the way to make money in this game. And it's going to lead to a lot of disappointment when you don't get lucky. And yeah, you'll get the excitement when you do get lucky, but overall you're going to be losing money. And for most people that also leads to some disappointment or unhappiness. Anyway, the King 10 I flopped so good that I thought I could just check back and try to induce bluffs. I thought it was pretty unlikely that if I hit the board this hard, that my opponent hit it too. So just like the aces hand, the only way I was going to make money here is by inducing a bluff from my opponent. Turns out he did have the jack. Whether or not I would have gotten the same amount of money by betting the whole way, I'm not sure. I think given that he didn't have very many chips, I probably could have got it all anyway. But I like the way I played it because that way, if he had a hand like 7-8 suited, I still give myself a chance to extract some value from that hand. Whereas by betting, I will only extract value if he has a piece of the flop, a made hand. Ooh, and look at that, I just picked up the 2 of diamonds. 2 of diamonds gold card, which brings my collection to 74. Gold cards are sweet. They're tough to come by, but they're exciting. They allow you to get in free rolls, so you can get free money for them. And you can also actually sell them on this thing called the exchange, so it's pretty cool. You get the gold cards just for playing in the games, being on the tables, and being the lucky player who randomly gets awarded a gold card. And then you can cash them in, so that's cool. Here with the Jack 10, I had position. This guy's playing fairly loose, so there's a good chance that if I hit a Jack or a 10, I would have the best hand. But when I miss the board completely, I'm not going to try to do anything fancy. Here with Ace 10 suited, I'm going to re-raise this guy. I think that I have the best hand most of the time, but if I just call pre-flop, then I only have selection going for me. Whereas by re-raising before the flop, I have aggression and selection, and 2 out of 3 triple threats is better than 1 out of 3 triple threats. twos. It's not a must call, but I am confident in my abilities to play post flop, so I will call here. The twos on the other table was a must call because not only was I getting three-way action, I was also closing the action, which meant if I call, we're guaranteed to see the flop. There's no way I can get re-raised out of the hand. Okay, piggy bank doesn't re-raise very much, so even though it's starting to get somewhat expensive, I think he's got a big hand and I can get paid if I hit a deuce here. So I'll take the odds. I mean, it's an extra 28, but if I can expect to win about 240 total, then it's a fine investment. You see we had 120 in the middle, but we'll take out 28 of mine. We'll just call it 100 to make it easier, and then 70 from him. So that's already 170 there. So if I think he's going to fire at least 70 on the turn, which I think is fair to assume since most people increase the size of their bets, I'm getting my implied odds there with my pocket deuces. So I got no problem with calling there. But we can see the difference there. On the bottom table, when I called, I closed the action, so I'm guaranteed to see the flop. I know what price I'm getting on my money, and I know I'm going to see the flop. Whereas on the top table, when I called that raise from I Am Titanium, there was still a possibility of me getting re-raised behind and not necessarily getting to see the flop. Like GLD up could have re-raised, made it 40, and then piggy bank could have made it 80 or 100. Now what did I get for my $12 that I tried to see the flop with? Absolutely nothing. I just wasted that money. I put it in the pot and didn't get to see anything for it. So that is why it's important to be closing the action with hands like pocket pairs and suited connectors, and why you have to be more cautious about investing money in the pot when you aren't sure what's going to happen behind you. Whenever you are putting money in the pot, you want to be doing it for a purpose. And, yeah, that's all I'm trying to say there. Put money in the pot with a purpose. You know, just look a step or two ahead and think about what is most likely to happen. That's all. By doing that, you'll be one step ahead of the game. No pun intended. Here with the sixes, I thought this guy was playing fairly tight, and when people call from the small blind, they generally have a pretty good hand. I didn't think he was going to fold to a continuation bet, so I thought investing money in the pot here served no purpose. That's why I checked back. I was hoping to show down my hand. I think if he called with a real small pair, a hand that I was beating, I may have been able to show my hand down. But alas, didn't work, no big deal. This guy's playing real friggin' loose. That's why I re-raised him with the queen 10 off suit. Had he been a tighter player, I probably would have just folded. And that shows how you have to be kind of malleable and able to adjust your strategy to your opponents, because some plays and techniques will work against some opponents and they won't work against other opponents. Or they will work against some opponents, but they will work better against other types of opponents. And that's why, you know, it's good to have a well-rounded game. Be willing to try different things. Ouch. Flush draw hits. Trip queen's ace kicker down in flames. Glad that wasn't me. It is never fun getting sucked out on. I mean, to be fair, the guy had the nut flush draw. You can't really fault him for putting the money in, but man, sucks to be Tommy Gunn. So sucky that he quits right after. Oh well. Nice hand, goat. King Jack off. From this position, I think it's a fold. If I was one position over, then I think it would be a raise. And that depends on the players in the game. If the players are very bad, you want to see as many flops as you can with anything playable. So a King Jack would be something that you want to play. If people are playing like any king or like Jack 8, 5-7 off, crap like that. But if you're up against decent opponents who understand the game well, you don't want to be making any pre-flop errors. This player's loose, so he's most likely going to at least call, if not re-raise me there, blind versus blind. And given that I don't want to play out of position with a not so strong holding, 7 high, I'm cool with just folding. Here, however, I got the button. I'm going to have position. And instead of 7 high, I have ace high. But the main thing is position. When you have it, you can play a lot of hands. When you don't have it, you can't play so many hands. Okay, I am going to check this back to pot control and avoid getting check raised. Also, last time I checked back, this guy bet the turn real fast, so I'm going to see if he does that again. He doesn't. I'm just going to take the hand to showdown. If he bets the river, I'm going to call. On that river, I might even raise. Sure. He probably would have bet spades on the turn. He probably wouldn't call from the big blind with 4-5. So he might have a medium ace type hand that will feel compelled to call. On any other river except a 3, I was just going to call. And, what I did there was when I saw the flop, I decided once again that my hand would be best played as a bluff catcher rather than a value betting hand. And once I've made that decision, I play all the streets accordingly. I play the flop, turn, and river based on what I determine the value of my hand to be on the flop. If I determine my hand to be a high value hand that is worthy of value betting, then I would have bet the flop, maybe the turn and the river. Good technique to do is when you, this guy's loose, so I'm going to re-raise him too. A good technique to do is when you see the flop, determine how many streets your hand is good for. The flop is a street, the turn is a street, the river is a street. And I just got 4-bet, which means ace-7 suited is probably not the best hand. So I'm just going to let it go. And then, yeah, if you think your hand is worth 1 street of betting, decide which street you want to put that bet in on. The safest place to do it is the river, because even if you get check raised there, it's 1 extra bet. Whereas when you get check raised on the flop or turn, more bets can be coming. If you think your hand's worth 2 streets, you can either do it on the flop and turn, you can do it on the flop and river, you can do it on the turn and river. And the main determinant of which streets you should choose to do your betting on is your opponent's tendencies and the way in which you expect them to react to your betting patterns. Alright, on that note, I'm going to play one more hand. I got a good feeling about this Queen 10 suited. And then I'm probably just going to fold my way out through the video. I'm pretty happy with the concepts that I brought up, and I would love to hear any questions you guys have about these concepts. please post your questions on the video, and I will either answer them there, or if we get enough cool questions put together, then we can do a theory video that covers the concepts discussed as well as the questions that are posed. I think that would probably be a more effective way for me to answer your guys' questions, because it allows me to elaborate more. You know, I can use some stuff to enhance the answers rather than you just getting a textual answer. And I just think it would be more effective for you guys and more exciting seeing the replies in a video rather than just getting a written response in a comment section. But feel free to let me know what you guys would prefer between those two options. You know, this training experience here at grips.com is about going both ways. I give you guys my thoughts, and you guys give me your feedback, so that together we can create the best learning experience. I can do my best to give you guys my instruction, what I think is the best, but the same way certain lines don't work as well against certain types of players, certain teaching methods don't work for everyone. So if you guys can tell me what you would prefer, we can do a little something for everyone so that everyone gets the most benefit out of the experience. That's what we're going for.